Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar, Accelerating WAN Transitions in the Cloud Era. My name is David Klebanov. I am a head of product marketing with a company called Alkira. And today we have a great panel for you to have a conversation. My colleague, Syed Ali, who is a solutions engineer with Alkira, and two distinguished guests, Kevin Cohn, who is a VP of Solutions with a head, and Lumen Yan, who is a client solutions architect with a head. So before we start, just a few minor housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded. If at any point you would like to listen to this again, you can just navigate to the same link that you used to access this webinar. It's just going to play back the webinar recording for you. You're welcome to ask questions. You have in your screen, you have a question place where you can submit questions. We'll see if we can get to the questions at the end of the webinar. Otherwise, we will absolutely follow up with you after the fact. And one last thing is that we encourage you at the end to provide feedback, and so we can know how this webinar went for you. If you enjoyed the content, presentation, or whatnot, it's going to help us make it better next time. All right. So with that out of the way, how are you guys feeling? Are you good? Kevin, Yan, Lumen, Syed?
Doing great. Nice to have it, David. It's great.
All righty.
Doing great, thank you.
All right. Well, so today we're going to talk about clouds and wide area networking, and all of that is obviously part of what we view as the digital transformation that is really powered by the cloud. And we are very proud at Alkira to partner with AHEAD to combine our philosophy, our approach to building these networks for the cloud era, which is what we call a network cloud. And obviously, we're going to expand on that further down in the webinar. But we're very happy, glad to partner with AHEAD and see how AHEAD helps customers through this digital transformation journey with what AHEAD calls as a digital delivery platform. And with that, I want to hand it over to Kevin first and have Kevin walk us through the AHEAD's kind of methodology around this digital transformation and what this digital delivery platform is all about. So Kevin, take us through for a couple of minutes what you guys are doing at AHEAD.
Thank you, David. Appreciate the intro. As you mentioned, I lead the solutions team out here in the Bay Area for AHEAD. And one of the things that we talk to our customers about, and one of the primary things that we have conversations around, is how we can integrate and stitch integral technologies and policies, procedures, and the like with in order to deliver desired business outcomes. So when we're meeting with our customers, they all have a goal, they all have a direction, they all have desires that they need to get to or envision their technology or approach can deliver. What we do is we identify where they currently are on that journey. And then we take that gap in the middle and we stitch together the solutions that can make their goals and their dreams happen. So every company has those desires, and this is the platform that we present to them in discussing how they achieve those objectives, those goals. Oftentimes, we start at the enterprise cloud level, second row up. That is an area where we all tend to agree and have great conversations around. We talk about storage, the compute, the network, containers, virtual machines, how they're protecting your data, how you're securing your environment. And we're saying, most of our customers say to us, we want to do more with less. We want to adopt technologies and procedures and policies that will enable us to achieve those business goals and objectives. And what we do is align what we know of these technologies, what we know of our ability to integrate these technologies to those goals. So we'll start here and we'll have very meaningful conversations about where they are and where they need to be and the types of technologies they need to adopt in order to arrive at that destination. One of these journeys takes us up this ladder, if you will. As we go through the enterprise cloud options, we begin to start talking about modern applications, software-defined networking. We're talking about software-defined storage. We're talking about adopting public cloud. We're talking about microservices. We're talking about How does your DevOps environment work? How does your CI/CD environment work? Let's talk about your tool chains and how to optimize those for best performance and reliability, as well as making you the most efficient organization possible. And then we introduce them to analytics and intelligent operations, how to proactively determine when things are failing in their environment or could fail, and how to make their environment more robust. And so we walk them through this long journey, and all the way on the sides here, I'll look to the right side of the screen, you'll see the integrated security section. At every level, we have to talk about security and enabling you to adopt and incorporate a secure approach to your environment. We all know ransomware is a major issue. We identify and prevent you from encountering issues with ransomware. And on the left side, we talk about automation. And whenever you repeat tasks, you're wasting and you're less efficient. You're wasting resources on things that you can automate. And so we take those repetitive tasks and we automate those so that what you can do is find that and recover that time that your people are using to do those redundant tasks and allocate their time to more meaningful tasks. And so this journey is something that we help customers stitch together. And as part of this, for example, we'll have a customer that says we want to adopt an approach of infrastructure as a service. And I'm just using this as an example. And so we say, okay, here's all your environment on premise. We're going to automate that. We're going to provide a service catalog for you and enable you to have your end users make a request through their ITSM that goes and is filled within minutes as opposed to days or weeks. Once we adopt that, then we say, here's your public cloud environment. We're going to stitch you into the AWS, Azure, or GCP environment. And because you're not always going to have the resources on site necessary to fill those requests. So we'll enable our service catalog to pull from those resources as well to fill your requests in a timely manner, while repatriating that workload at a future date to your on-premise if that is in fact your desired goal and part of your cost savings approach. One of the technologies that we look to make that happen is Alkira. And you'll see that I've inserted the Alkira name there at the networking component in the Enterprise Cloud section. And that Alkira story is what we're here to talk about today. So David, back to you.
All right, that's great, Kevin. I think when we started working together, there's certainly a lot of synergy between how you guys are viewing this kind of a digital transformation that the enterprises are going through on the cloud side and wide area network side and compute and storage, and what Alkira offers from sort of like the enterprise networking and security standpoint. So certainly, I concur and echo with what you mentioned as far as the HEADS methodology as an Alkira kind of nicely plugging into your guys' approach. So great. Again, thank you for the partnership. All right. So with that said, let me take you a little bit through some of the elements that Kevin spoke about and some of the things that I mentioned earlier as far as that networking journey that enterprises that we're working with are going through, and not just the enterprise we're working through, but generally as the entire kind of a networking industry is going through, right? And one thing that we can all agree on is that this day and age, applications are really driving the requirements behind the IT infrastructure, and we can also agree is that the application landscape has taken quite an evolutionary approach since the days of the on-premise applications to the days of hybrid applications that are stretched across the cloud and the on-premises data centers, and entering into the kind of an application landscape that is stretched across multiple clouds and potentially even going into the edge computing. So we can clearly see the progression of the application landscape over the years, and that progression, those application transitions have a very profound effect on how the IT infrastructure copes with this application requirements, right? And specifically, we know that compute and storage and databases, all these disciplines have really kept pace with application development, and of course we see the onset of the public cloud and the SaaS applications. However, the networking and security is something that many of the IT organizations and enterprise IT organizations have been struggling with, right? So we know that something needs to be done, right? So when we look at what really happens to the networking and security as far as these application transitions are concerned, and how networking and security really evolved in order to accommodate this new sort of application needs, right? We can identify three distinct phases. The first phase is really an historic approach where the networks were built with data center in mind. So applications were primarily residing in the data centers, and yes, there was an early onset of the cloud, especially with AWS bursting into the scene in the mid-2000s, right? But primarily, data center was the place where the applications were held, and that was the crown jewels of the enterprises, right? And to service that architecture, the networks and the wide area networks were constructed in a way that really catered to that approach. The networks of those days were physical. Many times they were powered by technologies like MPLS. Cloud access itself was provisioned from the data center, if there was a cloud access at all, but most of the applications still resided in a data center, and hence the security perimeter also existed in a data center. So it's a very monolithic and simplistic approach to building networks, and surprisingly, even these days, in 2021, we are seeing that many of the enterprises still leverage this traditional approach to building networks, even this day and age, right? So we're definitely going to talk to that point a little bit later, and to see how we transition this approach, this traditional sort of a legacy approach, into the modern approach where cloud is taking the central role and really becoming very predominant force behind application transitions, right? But again, strangely, this is still a predominant design for many of the customers. Now, if we look a little bit further into what happened in the last decade was actually very eventful for networking. And that is true for the cloud side of things, but it's also true for the wide area networking, right? We saw a birth of software-defined solutions, and those software-defined solutions extended to the wide area networks. They also extended to campus networks. They extended to the cloud interconnects. The software-defined sort of era, if we want to call that, of the last decade, was something that really kind of invigorated networking. And the reason that this was important is because the application landscape also has changed. The last decade was very eventful also from the application standpoint, where cloud has started taking a more predominant approach. Cloud has matured to the point that it was ready to accommodate those enterprise applications that were traditionally running in the data centers, and they really moved into the cloud, and now it became a hybrid approach of applications residing in the data centers and applications residing in the cloud, and the movement of the applications being offered as a software as a service, which necessitated the access to internet. So all of this distribution of the applications really forced the network to be reinvigorated and become software-defined, right? So specifically on the wide area side of things, we're seeing the birth of SDWAN, which is really the way that many enterprises started viewing their wide area network infrastructure as something that needed to be software-driven and software-defined. The cloud access, because of the application distribution, has become very much distributed. And we're seeing the notion towards the direct internet access and the security that is associated with it, that many times had been a cloud security through secure internet gateways or whatnot. right? The applications that went into the public cloud were accessible through either colocations, which basically also promoted the software-defined approach with software-defined cloud interconnects, or through some sort of a cloud gateways or cloud on-ramps directly from the software-defined wide area networks. So the proliferation of these applications in different places really drove that notion behind that networks need to be simplified and automated and be more in line with what applications are. So what happens now? So if we look at what happens these days, right, applications are becoming, or the distribution of applications is becoming even more pervasive, right? So we haven't really abandoned anything that has happened in the last decade. We just added on top of that the presence of the multi-cloud, which is many of the organizations we're talking to are looking to expand their cloud footprint, their application cloud footprint from a single cloud to multiple clouds. And obviously AWS is a major force behind public clouds, but we definitely see the diversification of an application landscape from AWS to Azure and to GCP. So all of these clouds are starting to take a more prominent role in the cloud application story. And then, like I mentioned early on, is some of the movement into the edge computing that is also being offered by the cloud service providers, and of course the SD-WAN from the wide area networking side, the SD-WAN technologies that were deployed as part of kind of the software-defined movements are now also in the mix. So we have like a very complicated set of problems now that are distributed cloud application environments, distributed internet and SaaS applications, still the distribution of users, obviously these days remote access users, and the traditional data centers that are still there, and the traditional branches that are still there, and the edge computing and the SD-WAN fabrics that were built. So how are we all going to kind of mesh this all together into a single or singular solution that is really compatible with what we call now a cloud era? And the way that we approach that at Alkira is we said that the way to look at this is we need to adopt a similar philosophy that applications and compute storage database have taken when they adopted the cloud. A similar approach needs to be taken for the infrastructure and for the network and security in particular. And to cater to that, we have approached that by creating what we call an Alkira Network Cloud. So what Alkira Network Cloud is a notion. Is a notion of taking your network and security and making it compatible with this cloud era. And to make it compatible, it really has to inherit a certain characteristics that are traditionally been associated with the cloud, and now the networking and security has to inherit those characteristics in order to be compatible with the cloud era. And those are the characteristics of elasticity and agility and optimized cost. So those are all kind of on the business side of things. And on the technology side of things, it's an ability to instantly provision end-to-end connectivity. An ability to insert higher level network and security services, an ability to have a comprehensive day two operations through visibility, control, governance. So all of those things that really make the network compatible with the cloud era. So the way, like I mentioned, we approached that is we created a service. The technology that powers that service is called an Alkira Cloud Services Exchange, which is a global distributed virtual infrastructure delivered as a service. And it really provides this integrated approach to connectivity between everything that constitutes your network. It provides an integrated connectivity into the clouds, but also inside the clouds, between different cloud workloads, between different regions of the clouds, and between different clouds for those who adopt the multi-cloud approach. It provides an integrated ability to branch out into the SaaS applications through a distributed internet access. It provides an integrated security perimeter, and so to cater to all of these diverse networking needs. And to make sure that all of this cohesively works together, the Cloud Services Exchange, this global virtual infrastructure, comprises of what we call the cloud exchange points, which are virtualized cloud and multi-cloud points of presence that leverage the hyperscalers' public cloud infrastructure in order to deliver this network connectivity and network services for the enterprises. So I know it's a mouthful, so we're going to deconstruct some of those things in the next couple of minutes. If we look at from the wide area networking side, right, what I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, as far as the evolution of the networking, and the very first phase was this monolithic approach of the building wide area networking using technologies, hardware-based technologies that really were more predominant in the 1990s and the 2000s. And one of the technologies that really was the predominant technology those days was the MPLS technology, and networks of today, many networks of today are still built with that technology in mind. So when we look at that and we're saying, well, how do we take that and apply the principles of the network cloud on that technology, what we're seeing is that customers are doing migration from the traditional MPLS technology into what we call an Alkira Unified Backbone, which is part of the Alkira Network Cloud and part of the Alkira Cloud Services Exchange offering, and really making sure that backbone is a connector for all of these entities that live on the network: users, data centers, remote sites, edge compute environments, public cloud environments, SaaS applications, data centers, colocations, whatnot. Now, by adopting this network cloud approach and leveraging the unified backbone as the means of connectivity, and of course the integrated security that comes with it, organizations are really sort of getting the benefits of this high-speed wide area network with backed SLAs, service level agreements, the integrated cloud networking, the security and segmentation and micro-segmentation that is embedded into this. And the cherry on top is really the extreme simplification of the provisioning process of this entire network with literally one click, and most of the networks get provisioned in under an hour, which is basically constitutes in minutes. Right, so we're really seeing that this migration from the traditional MPLS into the Alkira's network cloud solution really provides these distinct benefits. Now, the migration itself, of course, we would have to spend much longer than this webinar allows to talk about the migration itself, but we have worked with many enterprises to make this migration successful, and Lumen and Syed are going to touch on a specific enterprise customer case study at the end of this webinar. But typically, this migration is handled in a stepwise approach of connecting certain elements, many times data centers, into both MPLS and the Alkira solution in order to provide this route exchange between the two environments, and then slow migrating the remote sites into the Alkira solution from the MPLS, the existing MPLS solution, and migrating cloud and internet access into the Alkira solution, and eventually down the line decommissioning MPLS service when it no longer serves its purpose. So again, a very profound approach that we're seeing enterprises are taking into the migration from the traditional monolithic data center-based approach into a more distributed, cloud-native, software-defined approach of the cloud era. Now, for those who have adopted SDWAN technologies, which we talked about previously, that was a major force behind wide area networks in the last decade, and still is. There's still quite a lot of interest in SD-WAN, and SD-WAN still provides a very distinct advantages to organizations. So we're still seeing a lot of companies are having interest with SD-WAN. So it's interesting to see how does Alkira handle this world where customers have adopted SD-WAN, but still wants the benefits of an Alkira solution in order to get more kind of a comprehensive cloud networking and cloud security posture. Right. So in this particular case, we're going to talk about two cases. So the first one is an SD-WAN fabric that was deployed, and it's a singular global SD-WAN fabric that we would like to connect into the Alkira Unified Backbone in order to provide these advantages around cloud networking and cloud security that are not natively provided by or not comprehensively provided by the SD-WAN solutions. So everything that is connected into the SD-WAN solutions, be those site, campuses, data centers, those are still can be resident on the SD-WAN fabric in order to provide this site-to-site connectivity. When we're talking about connecting into the cloud in a more meaningful way, in a more distributed way, and with integrated security, we're talking about establishing this regional cross-connects between the SD-WAN fabric into the Alkira cloud exchange points, those points of presence. And in fact, these points of this Alkira cloud exchange points, they are integrating an SD-WAN elements of the fabric, the virtual CPEs, of the SD-WAN in order to make a landfall of this SD-WAN fabric right there at the Alkira Cloud exchange points, which really kind of eliminates that last mile connection between the SD-WAN fabric and the Alkira's unified backbone. So what you're seeing here is exactly that regionalization of that cross-connect between the SD-WAN fabric and the Alkira cloud exchange points, and those dotted lines in here are the extension of the end-to-end segmentation between the SD-WAN fabric and the rest of the cloud networking environment. Now, one other interesting artifact here is that you can see on the right-hand side is some of the non-SD-WAN sites, so the sites who have not been upgraded to SD-WAN for various reasons. It's maybe a budgetary decision. It's maybe just sort of the decision that many enterprises are taking to certify certain solutions. So in this period where there are SD-WAN and non-SD-WAN sites, and Alkira offers an interesting solution where these non-SD-WAN sites can be simply connected through the use of an IPsec technology to the closest Alkira Cloud exchange points, which means that the non-SD-WAN sites, the sites that have not been upgraded, migrated to SD-WAN, can easily part in this network and get all the benefits we talked about around end-to-end connectivity, integrated security, cloud access, operational visibility, all the goodness we touched upon. All of that can now also be extended to the sites that have not been migrated to SD-WAN. So even this hybrid approach of SD-WAN and non-SD-WAN, it works very nicely. Now, in addition, things like remote users, obviously these days, all of us are working remotely, so the ability to really onboard this remote users into the Alkira's unified backbone through what we call a zero trust network access. So that obviously gives an advantage of onboarding users that are not part of an SD-WAN fabric. So again, a hybrid approach of SD-WAN, non-SD-WAN branches, and remote users, and all of that is cohesively coming together with the Alkira solution. Now, another variant of an SD-WAN approach is a regionalization of SD-WAN fabrics, and there are several reasons why this regionalization can happen. It could be from the standpoint of separated management. It could be from the standpoint of mergers and acquisitions, where different SD-WAN sort of islands have to come together. Sometimes it's even different SD-WAN vendors that have to come together and be interconnected. So there's several cases where multiple SD-WAN fabrics can exist, and in that case, Alkira also provides a connectivity medium to connect these SD-WAN fabrics together in exactly the same manner as I touched upon in the last slide. And again, you can see here the non-SD-WAN CPEs and the users that can be natively connected into the Alkira Cloud exchange points, and they're not part of either one of those SD-WAN fabrics, but they can still participate in the network and get the same benefits that an SD-WAN fabric gets by connecting into the Alkira's infrastructure. And again, clouds and SaaS internet exit points, all of that is nicely integrated. So as you can see, we talked about an MPLS, traditional enterprises that can take advantage of migrating into an Alkira solution. We can see that enterprises who have adopted an SD-WAN solution can extend their SD-WAN solution more meaningfully into the cloud with cloud networking and security by connecting to Alkira, and alongside SD-WAN also have a mixed approach of SD-WAN and non-SD-WAN sites that are connected to the Alkira backbone. So a pretty interesting kind of architectural flexibility that comes from the wide area network standpoint that enterprises can leverage. So with that being said, I want to pass it on to Lumen and Syed to take us through a specific customer case study that the guys have been working on, and see how things that we talked about, Kevin and I, from kind of an approach standpoint and from the solution and technology standpoint, how it all comes together in this enterprise customer case study. So Lumen, Syed, take it away, guys.
All right, great. Thank you, David and Kevin, for kicking this off, and also David for walking through the Alkira and the industry trends, if you will. So I'd like to talk about the enterprise customer case study, really kind of looking at it from the perspective of real-world problems, and trying to take this into the world of the real world, right, where the rubber meets the road. Okay, so see if this works here. All right. So the slide said design requirement, global enterprise, and so on. Be the requirement per se, but I'd like to spend a little bit of time, give some context to what are the challenges that we were meeting when we were working with this customer. And then it resulted in, hey, how do we actually solve for these challenges? How do we improve this customer's IT posture, even at the higher level, at the people, process, technology level, that then, effectively kind of rides on top of that DDP, the transformation platform, and then also align to some of their business problems. Okay, so as David said, and also Kevin reiterated, right, today's network technology, network stack, if you will, you can't really get away from connecting to the cloud, right? Workloads, resources are moving over, be it the AWSs or GCP or Azure. So you're constantly dealing with this multi-cloud environment, while you still have your traditional on-prem data centers. And that was the case with the customer that we were working with. We're in an active proof of concept with them. They have 2 active data centers, active from the standpoint of their services that they're offering to their partners and customers, as well as staff and remote staff. So while they have active data centers on premise, they have some assets that are in the cloud. The model was so that you can operate essentially in that N+1 model, right? The active data centers could go offline, only one take over for all things, and facilitate all their service capabilities. So our initial work with them was actually helping them stand up new technology, new stack of network firewalls, switches, and whatnot in their data centers. And where we learned that it's a challenge is that the 2 data centers were really active in the sense that they were actually interconnected. So one of the first challenges we ran into was you can't touch one data center without impacting the other one. So that became more of a resiliency, business continuity issue that ultimately a new approach needs to be designed. They have interconnected tunnels, they have interconnected policies, services running across both data centers, in servers, and they're wanting to move to cloud. So then at the highest level, how do you decouple that? Almost like a little bit of a spaghetti, if you will, right? And move to the cloud first approach and add your interconnections and your network architecture. So the other thing that we ran into in supporting them in migrating and moving their equipment were that as they add customers and partners, these partners are coming in to their network, to these data centers, be it logical tunnels or actual landing point-to-point circuits and things like that. Then the business problem that overlaid on top of that was, well, they're going to go international. They're going to expand their business. So the traditional way that we would build this out, right, would be go and find colocations, bring up your compute stack, bring up your services, and it's very physical. So then what we talked to the customer about was, okay, how do you get out of that? Because that's going to take capital expenditures, buy equipment, it's going to take a lot of time, and you're going to run private circuits back to your two data centers in the United States, one on the West Coast and one in the middle of the country. That's going to take a lot of effort, time, resources, skill set in order to do that. So from a time to market perspective, how do you get something going architecturally in approach perspective and move very quickly? So that was another challenge that they had in terms of speed of market. So another challenge that came up was, with their business is a third-party contact center business. As they expand and add call center agents and so on, they're pretty much from the internet perspective coming in all over the place. So from a performance standpoint, the users are having to then come in and home into the two data centers as their point of presence. So again, how do you scale that out? How do you go to Asia, the Philippine market, the European market, and not have these users come back in? Well, you have to stand up your own point of presence. Back in the day from my previous employer, we built out carrier-neutral facilities, very physical, very expensive, and you have to have fairly high-end skill sets to manage all that routing and configuration and security. Okay, so let me go back on this slide, right? As you heard, the context is that. Then we summarize this in terms of these requirements, right? Add redundancy. How do you be able to operate without impacting production workloads? How do you improve that speed of market and being able to stand up their internal contact center stack, essentially, and applications and support services, and lift and shift and put that out into different parts of the world, essentially. What we had called it was, essentially a company in a box. And then how do you get to international growth, again, without building your own physical infrastructure? And then putting these applications, putting these access closest to the partners and also their staff users that are going to be consuming the services from the assets. And then lastly, as Kevin pointed out, security should be built in, is built in, needs to be built in. Call it what you want, but then and therefore designing towards a end-to-end segmentation for different roles, different partners, overlaid on top of a infrastructure. Okay, so those are requirements, high level. I'll pause for a second. Syed, anything I missed as far as requirement goes?
No, I think you hit on the spot all the requirements.
All right. How about David, Kevin? Trying to keep it interactive. Makes it fun.
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, it's capturing really the essence of kind of what we talked about earlier, is the transition that many enterprises are typically going through, and this enterprise doesn't seem to be, deviating from what we're hearing from others as well. So absolutely go on. Yeah, exactly. And again, one of the challenges that may be overlooked when we talk in terms of IT speak, is what I call it, right? Technical speak, is the people side of the house, the equation, right? People, process, technology. And the people side is, today, COVID aside, skill sets are hard to find. Technology is moving so quickly. You may be certified on one thing, all of a sudden,
6 months later, a new set of things come out, and you have to learn that. While you're experts previously on one thing, now you got to relearn it or learn new things and get up to speed on it. So one of the things that was very evident was in this customer was that is the case. They've gone through some transitions in terms of management. People have left, new people have shown up. A lot of institutional knowledge went out the door. So when we brought forward and talked with them about the Alkira solution, the elegance and the ease of use of literally almost a point-and-click way of building out a wide area backbone, and this is all private wide area backbone overlay, on top of some of the best networks that's been built out there, the Amazons, the Googles, and the Microsoft network. You're literally overlaying a private overlay for your own enterprise, and you ride it on top of those cloud providers' backbone, the physical backbone that they have. You don't have to deal with your carrier-neutral facilities. You don't have to buy your big, giant Cisco routers and Juniper routers. You don't have to stand up your carrier hotels, go find your colocation contracts. And doing that internationally, that's even more difficult. If people on the audience have done that on an international standpoint. You got to run your circuits, your Transpac circuits and submarine circuits and all that stuff, right? Those are all this headache that this company, they don't have the skill to go do that. They don't have like a dedicated, telco team and that does vendor management. So all of a sudden, for their international expansion, we address the ease of use part of it. We also address the instantly giving them that and that ability to build out a global network without building a global network. Because this is the overlay on the Alkira system. Alkira has already spent the effort to build out these CXPs globally. So talk about getting to market very quickly. And this fitted into the story nicely with this customer. Okay, so the slide is showing kind of the end state, if you will. I'm not going to go into the logical architecture per se, but just kind of paint some pictures and tell some stories around it, right? So today they have a couple of data centers, like I said, active, but they're not really active. You can't really touch one without impacting the other because they're network interconnected pretty tightly, as it turns out. So how do we actually extrapolate and move that architecture to a different architecture where these two data centers are not inexplicably tied together, right? You can do work from an IT operation change management perspective, touch one without impacting the other, therefore truly having a data center that'll stay up, right? And the business is not impacted. So we're essentially the proof of concept. We are overlaying the Alkira connectivity. Data centers are connected to the overarching CXPs. And then remote partners, sites, they're headquartered in California, then are treated as sites that are connected to the CXP and the Alkira cloud network. So now you can add things on. It's that hub and spoke, if you will, for the lack of the old school way of describing this, right? You can add sites, you can add networks, SD-WAN meshes, anywhere you want to, and connect it into a CXP, and you only need to deal with your routing, right? And this is on private address spaces. So today, even for security, they have split tunneling. They have internet egresses in those data centers. Well, we talking about, well, what if you don't do that? Right, that's pretty close to all your customers' data. So now you want to push your internet egress out into the Alkira side of the house, insert the Palo Alto firewalls, software firewalls, to perform your segmentation there. And that actually even simplifies your network routing and where things are going in and out of, and your NATing and everything like that in your data center. Treat those data centers now you have as truly backbone private services. And you're also adding geographic redundancy once you start lifting and migrating your assets into the cloud, right? They have DNSs, they have software that they have for their contact center agents, chats capability, all those compute, application, database, so on, stack can move to the cloud, while you still have the two physical premise as your two core, if you will, but then you're adding your true business continuity by standing up your entire service stack in the cloud. Right? So again, more geographic diversity. And at the same time, if you want to do that internationally, basically lift that up, drop another one over into Europe, for example, or into they already have businesses in in Philippines, and just land something out into the Asia Pacific. So it made a lot of sense for them. The other thing is now we also have then the users, the call center agents. Right. Today they're VPN, remote access connected, but they're also all having to connect back into either of the two data centers on the West Coast and also in the middle of the country. So if you have users, and the only way you can get into those private services, it's going to be pretty slow, right, to connect someone that's sitting out in the Philippines back to into even the West Coast. So performance benefits, scalability benefits, instant global reach, simplify the IT operations. You're not impacting the services. You can touch things without impacting the entire infrastructure. So there are a lot of benefits to that. And these line of businesses and the networks, the DCs on the side, are interconnected with partners. And then now you can go and connect to those partners in this way and add partners on and add new customers on, again, very, very quickly, very easily. And then the last thing, I think, would be the multi-cloud aspect of it. Their partners and customers are in other cloud providers with respect to their systems that they have to integrate with. And so this is yet again another natural way or quick way to build that out, right, with this infrastructure, this cloud exchange network. So you can go AWS, you can go Azure or GCP. And the beauty here is that this is all private. This is a private backbone built out globally, or have the ability for you to build that out globally. Okay, so that's the picture. Looking forward to build out more of this POC with them and enabling their partners and their call center agents. And hopefully that'll give them all the benefits that they were looking for.
That's great, Lumen.
Yeah.
Sayed, did you want to add anything?
No, I just wanted to say, I mean, yes, this is a great use case. Having the ability to spin up a region internationally, not having to worry about physical constructs, high availability, all that which comes with the CXP that Alkira offers, and then extending seamlessly the security posture, right, in a different region as well as across clouds for your users is a big deal. Was a big deal for them. So I think Lumen did a good job covering their use case, but we can't emphasize enough, the simplicity that comes with the architecture and the benefits that they'll get from that. Right.
Well, thank you very much, guys. Lumen, Sayed, thank you for taking us through this customer's journey. And definitely, Lumen, as you were talking, I was kind of listening. You made some great points around the advantages that these guys have gotten from deploying the Alkira solution. So looking forward to more joint customers with you guys and further collaboration.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so
David, one last thing I forgot to mention.
Yes.
Which is the pricing model, and that is that as part of the business benefit of this use case and the pricing model that Alkira's philosophy is pinned on, is that you basically grow into that usage, right? If you're building this out physically, you're committing to fixed contracts, 1 to 3 years, if not at least 3 years for Trans-Pacific or submarine circuits. You're locked in. Right?
That's a great point.
And you hope for the best that your business in those markets grow. In this case, this is modeled, and you guys can probably explain that better than I can. This is modeled around, consumption model, right? The more you use, then you start paying more. But if you want to build this out, try it out, it's very, very easy to do. So.
You're absolutely right, Lumen. I don't know, Sayed, if you want to add anything further to that, but you're absolutely right, is that many organizations, they have kind of this phased approach, is that rather than a more traditional monolithic approach of pay everything upfront and carry all of the kind of capex cost upfront with procuring hardware and those going to colocations, procuring the colocation space. So all of that is eliminated because of this cloud-friendly model of sort of phased consumption, so pay-as-you-go or subscription-based, right? But it definitely gives folks the flexibility to not to just overspend upfront, like it's typically done, but do it in a cloud-like manner. Is that you use it, you pay for it, and you don't use it, you don't pay for it. So definitely a great point, Lumen.
Yeah, and those points are well understood, I think, in the compute world. But when you talk networking world, the concept of building for the peak use case and having a high capital investment anytime you want to go into a region is there, right? Most enterprises think like that. So transforming that mindset to think more along the lines of, hey, when I need a location, I can just go and spin it up, use it. When I don't need it, turn it off, and I'm not paying for it anymore.
Right. All right. Well, thank you, Lumen, for bringing it up. Great point. So with that, I think we come to the conclusion, and the two things that I would encourage you guys is first, like we mentioned in the beginning, a great partnership between Alkira and Ahead. Kevin was brave enough to donate his business email address here. So for all the listeners, all the viewers, if you want to get in touch with the Head team, specifically with Kevin and Lumen, you can reach out Kevin at kevincohen@head.com and discuss your kind of needs for the digital transformation for cloud, WAN, applications, whatnot. And on the Alkira side, we always encourage people to go and sign up for the demonstration. So all of you guys are highly encouraged to go and reach out to Kevin and Lumen for demonstration, but you can also do that on the Alkira's website through alkira.com/demo. And we have developed a very visual product, a very intuitive product to use. And so once you see it, it's you kind of appreciate the simplicity, the extreme simplicity that it takes to provision this global network for cloud, WAN, with integrated security, visibility, all the stuff that typically takes very heavy lifting, a lot of work and a lot of investment to put together. And doing that in a point-and-click fashion, in a SaaS-like user interface with one button to provision all of that is really a phenomenal change from the way things are done previously. So I want to thank all the presenters today, Kevin, Sayed, Lumen, Thank you for being part of the webinar. We had a couple of questions that unfortunately we are running out of time, so we will follow up with all the attendees after the fact. And like I mentioned in the very beginning, the webinar is going to be available immediately after this live webinar concludes, in the same link that you used to access this live webinar. The same one will be the on-demand viewing of the webinar later on. So thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.